Number 1. I'm a girl who lives in a good neighborhood in suburban New York City. This happened back in early November of 2015. I was 17 years old and was with my boyfriend at the time. He was 18, around 5'10", and mostly muscle. He drove his car to my house around 8 p.m. after work and parked across the street. He couldn't stay long and was only stopping by for a little because I hadn't seen him in a while. As time went on, we realized it was already 12 a.m. and it was time for him to start heading home. I walked him out to the front of my house, but we decided to talk a little more and hang out in front of my house. It was already 12:30 and we were sitting on my front steps with the only light being the streetlights on the corner of my block and one of the main roads. He was ready to leave, so I gave him a hug and a kiss goodbye and watched him walk to his car to make sure he was safe. The car is only a few feet from where I am, but I'm a worrywart. I sat on my front steps and I watched him get into his car and make a U-turn to turn onto the main road, which would lead him towards the direction of his house. The second, literally the same second his car turns the corner and drives away, a man turns the corner of my block. I live in a corner house, and starts walking with a fast pace. Before I could take another breath, he was already walking faster up the walkway to my front steps. I got up and I yelled at him to go away. He didn't listen, so I quickly got up and ran into my house, not looking behind me and almost missing the handle to the front door because I was sweating and shaking. But thankfully, I got in safe and locked it. There is a window next to my front door, which shows a clear view of the front of my house. When I looked outside, he was there. His back was facing the house, and he was on my front steps. I ran into my kitchen and took out the biggest knife I could find and hid on the floor behind my front door, just in case he turned around and saw me. I could have sworn I saw a small metal object in his hand, almost like a knife. I called my boyfriend because he was only a few blocks away, and he turned his car back around. I didn't look outside until I heard his car door slam, about 2 minutes later, and saw him running to my house. I rushed him into the house and explained what happened. I was shaking and crying and could barely speak. Even though he was pretty big and muscular, he isn't the person who would run after the guy. I was scared to call the cops in fear of my parents waking up because my boyfriend was supposed to leave earlier than that. 12 a.m. and my parents would lecture me for being outside at 12:30 a.m. This whole event took place within a 10-minute interval. The guy was never found, and I couldn't recall what he looked like due to how dark it was outside. I only saw him for a split second running towards me, and he seemed thin, dark-skinned, and around 5'9"-ish. I had no idea what he wanted from me. He never said a word, and I don't know how long he waited for my boyfriend to leave so he could strike. It scares me till this day, knowing someone was hiding around the corner, watching me and my boyfriend talk for about a half hour. I have not had a similar encounter again after that night. As a personal note, no matter how good of a neighborhood you live in, please be cautious at night. Always be aware of your surroundings and make sure you are not alone if you are out at night. Anything could happen, even a few inches from your home. Number 2. To begin with, I am a girl and I moved to a different street in the same town. We had to move out of our old house that we were renting because someone was interested in buying it. I was 13. We moved our stuff by car and didn't bother using a truck since the house was in the same town. I had my own luggage, and when my family was inside and I was outside with my sister, Sammy, we noticed a neighbor outside on his porch, glancing at us. He told us he was 31. He was Caucasian and always had messy clothes on. Being the paranoid freak that I am, I told my sister, who was 10, to be careful of him. Sammy shrugged it off, saying I was being too cautious. My mom is also extremely paranoid, and when I go outside alone or with friends, she says, don't talk to strangers, don't follow people, you know, the usual stuff. I felt safe in our town because it's been a year since my old encounter with a guy who tried to steal my dog, and I haven't seen him since. Anyway, the neighbor seemed friendly. Me and my sister let our guard down and told him our names and our ages. I know that's a terrible idea, but he already greeted our parents and didn't seem creepy. Yet. That was the first day. So after a week of living in the house, whenever I walked past, he would always greet me. It seemed a little strange that he was always on his porch. When I left for school and when I came back, I never thought anything of it. One time, he followed me to the bus stop. I was talking to my friend Sophia, just casual school stuff, and I didn't notice he had followed me. I felt scared, and Sophia seemed to just say, okay, or yeah, sure, to whatever he had to say. She told her parents, and she was more careful, since all the neighbor did was talk to us about appropriate things. He talked like an old friend. This continued. He would watch me from his porch, so I started leaving from my deck that led to the backyard. I never told my parents, as I thought maybe he just hung out there frequently. I was walking our foster dog, a greyhound named Goose. The neighbor petted him and talked about the dog. He laughed at his name. It sort of freaked me out, since he laughed until he couldn't breathe. It was just a name. And then he said, out of nowhere,
"Why do you keep leaving from the yard to go to the bus stop?"
Wait, what? Maybe I had misheard him, or I hoped so. He repeated his question. I felt anxious, and I have anxiety problems. I was always taught not to be rude to adults and be honest. My parents are from China and are really strict about lying, and I was punished if I did so I felt nervous lying. I liked seeing the flowers in the backyard. That was a lie, but he seemed to believe me, so I think I came up with a good excuse. 2 days later, his backyard was packed with flowers. I actually have allergies, but they weren't that bad since I would stay away from his backyard. We lived in townhouses, so the houses touched each other and had the same layout. He now spent all his time in his backyard balcony. He would always try to talk to me, but I made excuses, like how I was going to be late for the bus or my friends are waiting. My parents made me go 5 minutes before the time the bus came, in case it was early. He figured that out when he confronted me when I was outside walking my dog. I am an indoor person and dislike spending my time outside most of the time, so that was usually the only time he would see me. He said,
"You're always early for the bus. You could stay for a little to talk."
He seemed paler than usual. His fists were balled up. I was ready to run if I had to, but I decided to talk it out. My parents want me to go early so I don't miss the bus and talk to my friends. The man nodded and seemed to calm down. He said to have a nice day. I nodded and walked away quickly. I decided not to tell my parents since my mom had enough stress recovering from a surgery on her ankle and was working at a new job. She was stressed when my dad and she would get into fights. They would just yell for a minute and then leave each other alone for a while, and then it would be okay. My friend Chris would come over a few times a month. I really liked him as a friend, and we were both 13 at the time. I turned 14 in April, and the creepy neighbor gave me a gift. It was a gift card and a happy birthday card from Walmart. I ended up giving the card to my sister and throwing out the birthday card. When Chris came over, the creepy neighbor would not say anything, but just stare at me. I told Chris I felt extremely uncomfortable around my neighbor. Chris thought I was overreacting, but decided to help if I needed it. I still felt safe, just creeped out. This same process continued over the school year and into summer. I had a community pool in my town, and I would go if my friends or sometimes family was going. Chris's family got there first, but my family wasn't going, and my mom said I could go to the pool and meet my friend. I had a bathing suit on, but I was wearing regular clothes over my bathing suit. The neighbor ran inside quickly and came out with swim shorts and a towel after he saw me. He also had the pool badge that allows you to go to the pool. I had a towel and a pair of goggles, so it was easy for him to guess that I was going to the pool. Before he ran inside, I had started running, knowing he would do something. I felt scared again. He was driving a car and stopped next to me when I was walking and asked,
"Do you want to ride?"
I said no thanks. Then he drove to the pool. When I met my friend there, I didn't need a badge since I was hanging out with them. The neighbor saw me, but surprisingly he didn't come up and say hi. I took off my clothes and I had a bikini on. Great. I felt very uncomfortable, but I stayed close to my friend and forgot about my creepy neighbor for a while. Chris and I swam for about half an hour before getting out and drying ourselves. The neighbor walked up to me and Chris and asked,
"Are you guys dating?"
WTF? I just stood there, not really knowing what to say. Chris and I exchanged glances. I nodded and I glanced at Chris, sort of asking him. He nodded with an awkward look on his face. He seemed to understand the problem. He felt uncomfortable too.
"You guys are too young."
Then he just started ranting.
13
I don't
is
really
way too
remember
young.
what
Your
he
whole life
said,
is ahead of you
but he
and
would
you're
just
dating
complain.
Now? Are you crazy?
Chris's parents
Way too
weren't
young.
close enough to hear. He didn't tell his parents, and I thanked Chris and told him that I owed him my life. We didn't talk to each other for a while due to the awkward situation. I felt relieved since the neighbor left me alone for a few months. Then he started asking me if we were friends. I would usually make up excuses and leave, then avoid him as best as I could. He bumped into me one day when I was walking with one of my friends. He asked if he could talk to me alone. My friend didn't move. I was getting tired of listening to this guy. I decided I was going to tell him to leave me alone. So I told my friend to wait there because I didn't want to drag her into this. He started talking to me.
Maybe you can come over and talk about things. Did you break up yet?
No, I don't want to come over. I know you are trying to be nice, but can you leave me alone? I have to take care of things. I lied. It was summer. I had no school and no work. He balled up his fist again.
I was nice to you. I planted flowers and talked to you. I really want to spend time together. I'd like you.
My heart stopped. Did he just say that? Yes, I decided to tell him how I feel. No, because I don't feel the same way, and I just want to be left alone. He got even angrier, so I sprinted away, yelling at my friend to run. She was a few feet away from me. We hid in her yard and lost the neighbor. He didn't talk to me for a week, then started again. I told the police. Didn't see him for a while. Of course, this experience does not end here. Little did I know, this jerk came back to his house since he did not have any physical contact with me or say more vile things. I did not know until my cat ran outside and I went to the porch to catch her. Then I saw him.
What's your cat's name?
He asked as if nothing was wrong. I bolted back inside my house, closing and locking the door. He kept ringing the doorbell for 5 minutes, then left. I knew calling the cops wouldn't help because apparently one of his family members is a cop and let him go. I checked and locked all my doors and windows, closed the blinds, and called one of my friends in case anything happened. He ended up moving since the town forced him to. Number 3. So I'm a 30-ish-year-old mom from Queensland, Australia. I have an almost 1-year-old dog who is a service dog of sorts in training to become a PTSD service dog. She is a Kelpie. For those who don't know, Kelpies are an Australian breed of dog about a medium size that are bred for our climate, working with stock, and their toughness and incredible loyalty to the point that they will place themselves in harm's way to protect their owner and will become aggressive and attack if they feel they need to. Wherever I am, she is with me. So on this day, it is late morning, my kids are at school, and I am sitting at my desk in my room doing some things online. My dog is laying on her bed beside my desk near the door. Just some background, I live in the outer suburbs of a big city in a very quiet estate. So I'm sitting at my desk on the computer in my room, which, if you look out my door to the left, you are basically right in view of the front door. My ex is crazy, and I am paranoid, so even though my dog is with me and it is almost the middle of the day, I ensure the door, although the wood door is open, the security door is locked. My driveway is steep, and my estate is silent during the day, and if someone wants to come to the door, you can generally hear them walking up the steep driveway. I have left the TV on in the lounge room just so that I can have noise in the background. I have terrible anxiety. The dog sits up and then begins stretching. As she does this, she stretches her neck so that her head is peeking out the door. Suddenly, the sound of my dog's bark slices through the air, making me leap. My dog is going absolutely ballistic, hackles up, growling, a tone I have never heard, and leaping at the security door, banging on it with her body in attack mode. My blood runs cold, as I have never heard or seen her like this before, even though she is technically still a pup. Like this, she would scare the bejeebers out of the toughest dude, and I have no doubt she would bite whoever it is. As I walk to the front door, my dog is still trying to attack through the door. I look up from her to the door, and my blood freezes, and I'm certain my heart stopped for a few seconds with shock. There, standing at my door, completely unfazed by my obviously vicious dog, was a man, just standing there, smiling. But not a friendly, "Hi, how are you doing" smile, but a creepy smile, one that gave me a terrible feeling in my gut, and something in my head was screaming, "Something's wrong!" He just stood there, staring with that creepy smile, with sunnies that had that mirror effect, so I couldn't see his eyes. I would say he would be in his late 40s. However, I'm not very good at judging age. He had a full head of hair, but it was beginning to gray. He stood there in silence, completely unfazed by my dog, who by this stage probably wanted to rip his throat out. Completely freaked out by this guy, I said, "What, don't you even knock or ring the doorbell or anything? You just stand there? Kind of creepy, isn't it?" Trying to come off as more assertive rather than asking a question. Finally, the creep speaks.
"Well, I was just walking past, and I saw someone was home. I didn't want to antagonize her more."
Still smiling that creepy smile, but I could tell from the look on his face that he was thinking something, perhaps running whatever plan he had through his head again. I said in a sort of "don't mess with me" manner, "Can I help you?" By this stage, my dog has calmed down a little, by which she is no longer lunging at the door, trying to get through it to attack this man. However, she has placed her body between me and the door with the man on the other side. I can see him thinking, although I have a "beware of the dog" sign on the front door, it was clear to me that this person was not expecting the dog to be inside with me. He then holds up a piece of paper with something printed on it, and it looks like one of those pamphlets you get in the mail that advertise carpet cleaning at certain prices, but doesn't let me see what is on it as he quickly folds it up and states he is from a company in the next suburb over, and tries my door handle, which doesn't budge because it is locked. He suddenly loses his smile, and my dog starts that deep grumbling in the throat growl dogs do before they are about to bite. I get a sinking feeling, and my anxiety and gut instinct are screaming at me to close the wooden door, but the sane streak in my head is saying, just stay calm, the door is locked, every window and door in the house is locked, he can't get in, and even if he did, the dog will protect you. You need to keep an eye on this guy. He pulls his hand back, and that creepy smile forms again on his face, as if he suddenly had a breakthrough in his plan that will change everything. He holds the folded piece of paper to the door and says,
Do you want a pamphlet?
Still smiling. I know in my heart and head that this is a ploy. He is trying to get me to open the door to take the pamphlet, in which case he will be able to get in and God knows do what. I have by now lost all the bravado I have and quietly say, no, but he continues to stand there with that smile on his face, not moving. Then he glances at my dog, still with the creepy smile. I look at her, then straight back at him, still with the creepy smile on his face, still not moving and looking straight at me. At this point, I am absolutely beside myself. I know I don't have the strength to protect myself against this man, and this is Australia, where weapons for self-defense are illegal. I managed to muster a, she'll bite, in a stammered voice, but I meant for it to come out as in a, I know what you are doing, and if you don't back off right now, you will regret it sort of tone. The man steps back from the door, but still looking at me with that creepy smile, and says,
That's fine.
Then leaves, cutting across my front yard. I don't know and I can't say for certain, but I truly felt that his intentions were not good, because he had somehow managed to get to my front door without a sound, and had been standing there for I don't know how long before my dog noticed him, and it appeared he was sizing her up, somewhat put off by her presence inside my house, mulling it over his head, whether he could get away with whatever it was he was planning without her ripping him to shreds. A while later, I heard my neighbor, who lives to the left of me, come home, so I went out the front door and checked my other neighbor's mailbox. They had just moved out 3 days before. There was no pamphlet in it. I asked my other neighbor, who had just arrived home, if she had a pamphlet for that company in her mailbox. She looked, and although she had mail, there was also no pamphlet. So creepy dude with a chilling smile and obviously bad intentions, just remember, my dog will attack you. Creepy Mina here of the Worst Nightmare channel. I hope you enjoyed those 3 stories of women who were not safe at home. Halloween is right around the corner. It really is. It's going to be September soon. So please send me your paranormal stories to creepymina@gmail.com. Of course, you know the drill. Comment below. Give me a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already. Share this video on your favorite social networking platform, such as Twitter. You can follow me on Twitter as WorstNightmare6. And please do all these things, as it helps with my search engine optimization, which helps to further promote the channel. And also, be sure to stay safe.